The guy says to me, those pants can't fit you. Those got to be your wife's.
Damn it, I was going to do the same thing.
I hate this. I hate this so much.
No. I would like you all to be quiet for a moment.
Okay.
1, 2. You know what to do. Gosh, it's so bad.
I'm telling you, you missed the worst part is him whispering the song with everybody. That was a different part.
He doesn't want to overshadow them. He wants you to hear them singing.
Oh, it's
He's
really
supremely weird. Everything about IU football right now. Welcome to the IU Handsome Hour.
Oh look, Ben's first, but he's really not first. Come
up
on,
yours, Ben, in your face.
Yeah, you can't say first unless you're first. It's got to be capital F.
Apparently, Alex has his microphone up too high, or his output, not his microphone. The microphone would be what gives the noise, not what.
Right.
Let me start again.
Yes.
It's the Handsome Hour. Now what's happening for me is I can hear Anish, but the video of him is delayed, so it doesn't look. It's like kung fu movies where he's talking, but the mouth isn't really.
I'm overdubbed.
That's perfect.
That's great.
It's the Handsome Hour with Jay, Boiler Down, and Anish. Got to get that part in so people know who we are. If they're not watching, if they're listening, they have to know these voices. We start off, as always, talking about IU football. Because, man, that is a weird. Black jerseys, the promo picture with the guy holding a hammer.
A sledgehammer, not just.
And then they came out to back in black. What is going on down there? And then they tried really hard to lose to Akron.
Right.
Woo, man.
By the way, our buddy Mohel93 checks in just to tell us he's going to bed. Well, good night, buddy.
Good night, sweetie.
You sleep.
When I was a kid, I had a clock radio, an old school, the old, like, you probably could still use it today, like it still would work. And it had the little timer, so you could put a radio on for 59 minutes, I think is what it defaulted to. And I would put on sports talk radio when I was going to sleep because I was an idiot even then. Yeah. And so he should do that with us.
Nothing like the smooth sounds of Mad Dog.
Exactly. Well, Mad Dog, no. Mad Dog was drive time. My dad listened to them, but I did not listen to them. I did not like them. But no, the late night guys were weirder, man. Because if you were doing overnight sports talk radio, that was a weird.
So you ever get into that weird, what's the UFO and supernatural stuff late at night?
I didn't ever get into that.
Holy moly, is that up? You don't want to listen.
You always think like the radio station is like, well, we need to got some open air time. Yes. That's why I reached out to Lafayette area radio stations once and then lost steam on that one too. But I said, we do
all
a
of
show.
Our best ideas are half baked.
Well, they're good ideas. It's actually doing anything with them once we have the
ideas, man.
Yeah,
I'm an ideas guy. Exactly. I don't know how to make anything happen, but I was like, there's got to be like a 2 to 3 a.m. window and some Lafayette radio station or East Lafayette radio station where they could put this show on, and it would be better than whatever's on. I can.
This is a good show, guys. I've said it to you guys before. It's a good show.
Robert Gill knows what I'm talking about. WFAN late night. That's what it was. It was. I knew all the guys that were on overnight. A couple of them are still around. Most are gone now because
gone like dead or gone.
Yes, I think some are dead. Some were on too. Because once you get New York, you don't stop. You don't give it up.
No.
So Ben Carnahan asked if Poppins is in the Handsome Hour house, and I think he told me he plays hockey on Monday nights, right? I don't think he can listen live. I think he was very, very sad about that.
CJ Poppins cooked us dinner tonight because I still had the leftover pork, the pulled pork from the tailgate.
I would recommend you have CJ Poppins, Chris Harder at your tailgate as often as possible.
He's an
book
amazing
him for
host.
your next tailgate, is what I'm saying. Because man, that homemade mac and cheese,
dude, it was great.
It had and if you tell anybody who likes homemade mac and cheese, you just describe it with it's got like that crusting
crust, and then it's got but underneath it was so buttery and creamy.
But he puts like a couple pounds of chopped up bacon in it. It's brilliant. Yeah, bacon's never made anything worse. No. So, man,
we wrap shrimp in it. It's a cheat code.
It is.
Oh, it was so good.
It was a good tailgate. It was great weather. It was fun being back on campus.
I see a recurring theme this year, Anish. But the tailgates are where things seem to peak.
We're peaking, man. We're peaking T-minus 1 hour before the game.
That is the best. Boom, perfect. And we put everything away, and the best thing to do would be just to drive back home right then.
Well, the problem is if we go to like AJ's beforehand, that would still be peaking. So we would have to just get out of bed. We'd have to pull the boiler down, just get out of bed, drive our cars into Rossade, watch the game, from the Tiller Tunnel, and then just boom, out.
Boom,
That's
out.
the only way. It works.
Efficiency visits. There's something to be said about those.
I did a boom out. I just did my exit. I was done.
You're annual. You do this annually. Once a year, a game will piss you
Put
off.
you over
I
the
was
edge.
so mad. The only reason I didn't go earlier is my son was with me and he didn't want to. I would have left earlier.
You could have dumped him with us. We
I
would have
thought about
taken
it.
him.
Right.
I thought about it. I thought about go sit with Uncle Anish. That's fine.
Greg McManus. Nobody ever drives into Ross 8.
No one.
Nobody.
Well done.
It's good.
Well done.
It's great.
Oh, we already have a question we should address. Boiler Bruss says, "Did you enjoy the Friday night game or prefer Saturday?"
I
prefer
would have
wins.
I would have preferred a win on
Yeah.
Friday night because then it gives you Saturday to enjoy, to travel. It gives you the extra recovery day. You watch the
remember
games.
The Ohio win under Brahm. When it was a fun night, it was a Friday night, they won, and then the rest of your weekend was just happy.
Oh,
you
it's
didn't
so
care
much
what happened
better.
because you were like, "This is great. My team's already done."
And they were
So-
showing the trick. They had multiple trick plays in that game too.
That was
back-
the peak.
that was-
Speaking of peaking early, that was
Speaking
just
of
like
speaking of brick
Speaking of
players,
speaking
early.
speaking early. It's like Louisville this year. They're maxing out on they're using
know.
up all of their trick play
and
reservoirs.
they play
Well,
NC
he's
State,
not allowed to
their
use them
favorite
after year
again.
3.
They're going to be 4. Are they already 4-0? I think they
Yeah,
are.
they're 4-0.
Barely, but yeah.
Doesn't matter, man.
No,
I'll
it
take
doesn't
barely.
matter at all.
This is like all
It's
those
great.
things people used to say. Would you take 12-0 if you got to duck the tough? Yes.
Played the easiest schedule
Absolutely.
in the world.
Give me a
and
max
All he
schedule.
wants is double-digit
Yeah.
wins in the left column.
it's-
That's
again,
it.
we always say this.
care
It's
how I
like
get there.
winning the lottery. I'll try it once. I'll try. I know that
Yeah,
everybody
right.
says it's a pain, but like, yeah, I'll try
Well,
it.
it's like, I only play the Powerball. I don't play those state
Small
lotteries.
ones.
Right.
Yeah, whatever. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Having some audio difficulties. All right, I'm back. God dang it. Too many wires here.
Too many wires.
There it is.
It was the standard Wisconsin game. See, this is what I know. Boiler Dad was going in, the ever optimist of the group,
Always.
and again, I save all of my optimism for Purdue Final Four hopes. I know that we're going to go to one soon. I know Matt Pater's
It's
taking
a
us one.
similar.
I
They're
cannot.
very close. Those two
I
things
don't-
are very close.
It's the flip side of it. I cannot see a win against Wisconsin ever because
but
the
you can
first
see a
Purdue.
Final Four.
But yeah, because the first Purdue Wisconsin game that I remember really is the fumble. Like the other ones never really registered. They weren't. Wisconsin wasn't good enough.
Well, that's when that's when it all began. That's literally when it began.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
It was
The height of the
04.
program. It's all
And
been
so,
done.
because the other ones I'd pay attention to the IU games, the Notre Dame games as a kid, like trash
Right.
talk with my friends. But
Right,
Wisconsin was
Wisconsin
just
was-
another team.
It was just another team where you won sometimes, you lost sometimes. To me, that was like Minnesota for years. Where some years they scored 50 on you, some years you scored 50 on them.
Coletto did it twice. This was after Alvarez. Coletto did it twice.
Wow.
What, beat
That,
them?
that
Tiller
right
did-
there. You can just stop and then just say, how stupid is this?
Tiller
Era.
did it 3 times. The fumble happened, and then that's all she
And
wrote.
then no one's done it since. But by the
Tiller
way,
not only did it 3 times, but in the losses, they were magnificent. They had the one in Madison where Breeze threw the ball 68 times or
no,
something.
no. I think it was over 80.
No.
I think I'll look it up.
Really?
You keep your thought going.
Okay. But that game, it was a loss and it was awesome. That game was so much fun. That was the one where Chris Daniels had 200-something yards receiving by himself.
I think that's right. That
Yes.
was
Yes.
was that
Boys.
was that the win or was that
1998.
They lost.
98.
1998, 55 of 83.
Goodness
Incredible.
gracious.
How sore must his
Absolutely
arm
incredible.
be? He completed 55
Yeah, that's what they
passes
asked him. Was it like
and still had
pitching?
28 incompletions.
25 years ago. Like this is in the past generation of football, right? I mean, like that's just not. That one, that one at least, is a often one before the fumble that you go back to in the highlights of, but like before that, I have never been a diehard and seen a Wisconsin win, so I don't know it. How do I do this? How do I function? I can't.
Tell me about the Final Fours you've seen.
I'll see. It is much more likely to me that a Wisconsin win. I don't see.
Well, that's not the way you just put. You just described it as I've not seen it. So
Right. So do you remember
I've seen it.
1980? Is that why?
I've seen Purdue good enough to do it. I don't
Oh,
see
no, no,
Purdue.
no.
You've seen Purdue good enough to beat Wisconsin too.
But maybe once under Braum.
I will go back. No. I will go back to something I've said in a previous Handsome Hour. You got to repeat these things sometimes because sometimes the audience changes. To beat Wisconsin football, you need one good night. To go to the Final Four, you need 4 Good nights.
Play to your seed. I can see that. Yeah, see, but this is how crazy Wisconsin win is. We're talking about this with like on the other side of going to a Final Four. It's
Yeah.
like, man, this is going to be the worst that they're going to be under
Guess
Fickell.
what? I now have been convinced
Oh, yeah.
neither one's ever going to happen again. So
Yeah.
I didn't think
I've
that
been
was
won
for
over.
air.
I
didn't think you were going to say that on the air. I thought you were going to maintain your
Save it for us.
remarkably positive demeanor. And
Sorry,
no, it's okay. I like real.
came out of character. Sorry.
I think it's great because you feel that way, and yet during the night session on Saturday, you messaged all of us and said, "Man, guys, Minnesota, Northwestern, Michigan State are all on the table for this Purdue team."
Oh, I think that's true.
IU, yes, sorry, but,
Yeah,
but so is Michigan State at this point. They're a disaster.
Purdue doesn't play State this
Doesn't
year.
play him, sadly.
Do they not?
I know.
They're an
Okay.
absolute
Yeah, no.
disarray.
Instead, we get Michigan. Instead, we get
Oh,
Michigan,
What
Ohio
a deal.
State. And
By the
all
way,
of these
this
non-conference.
October, guys.
It's tough. I told you
Oh, yeah.
the over under.
Yeah.
What did I tell you before?
September was
So
bad. October's were much.
I'm glad they got off to this good
I
start.
gave it to you the preseason. The over under in the first quarter or the first third that I gave you was 1.5. The over under in the middle was half, and the over under on the last was 2.5. That is how I presented this to you in the preseason, in the week before. And it is what it is. This is why when we were going through the season and we were saying all of these are winnable games, sure, these are the only winnable games, and if you win all of them you get to a bowl, but that's usually not how it works. No. Usually if those are the winnable games, there's one that you drop, one or two that you drop from there that you don't expect. The coin flip games are 50-50, and maybe there's one that you grab that you're not expecting. But like, this is the problem with this schedule. A lot of people are talking about a lot of people are saying that Purdue should start scheduling cupcakes again, which I get, I understand, but it was just the home and homes that were owed lined up perfectly with this complete change for change in systems and change in coaches and change in philosophies. And even if Brahm would have stayed, a change in roster era, right? And so you end up with one team, Fresno, entering the top 25, Wisconsin and Syracuse receiving votes, right? And Purdue beat Virginia Tech, who's absolutely awful. Yeah.
If Schrader stays healthy, Syracuse will win 8 games.
I think so. Yeah. I mean,
they got 4, don't they?
Right.
But the way he plays, I don't know.
By the way, speaking of
they
that
had
point,
the problem last year. So
I was looking this up. It's interesting you made that point, Anish. Could they go back to scheduling cupcakes? Now, more than ever, the schedules are subject to change because nobody knows what's happening in the next couple of years. But the things that do seem locked on the schedule are the non-conference games. And next year, they do start with Indiana State, which is something. But then they play Notre Dame at home, and then they go to Oregon State.
Whee!
So, that's a good one. And it made me remember they actually beat Oregon State at home to start the season a couple of years ago, which somehow slipped out of my mind because they didn't start that strong usually under Braun or under anyone. But they did win that game. But that was before Oregon State.
That was a game. The funny thing is everybody was like, oh, you should beat them anyway. I'm like, that's a bowl team. And they were a bowl team.
Yep. They were not bad.
It's hard to beat anybody, but it's especially for Jeff Brahm and the pre-con. Like sometimes like
is it Brahm September? What is it?
Bromvember.
Bromvember is the good one. Yeah. I don't know what Brahm September is the bad one.
Yep.
Not anymore.
And so I suppose we can talk about the game. I suppose we can talk about not cover it again.
Talk about.
It's just like Bully Dad was saying in the quick cast afterwards, life was shown in the middle quarters. Right. Third quarter looked good. The beginning of the fourth quarter looked good, but it's like the first 8 minutes, the last 8 minutes just didn't.
I figured something out at the end of the third quarter. I figured they got them right where they want them. I made this joke in the stadium. If they played like an 8 or 9 quarter game, they could have gotten it at that same rate.
Oh, I'm sure Purdue would have held. I'm sure Purdue would have held up against the big bodies of Wisconsin. Well, I mean, I thought you. I thought you gave a good perspective on it in your wrap up. In that, how does a team knowing that history come out that flat. That was a really good observation because I was struggling with that. I'm like, what's happening here? Because Purdue's not as good as some of these teams, but they're not that bad. To fall behind the way they did, like
they
that
looked horrible. They
looked
horrible. The game plan was so bad. Like,
and adjustments were good though.
Adjustments were good, but adjustments were like what they should have done.
But I don't think they did. Here's my observation though, from when they made it look like, oh, Wisconsin's, they're not superhuman. Look at that. And if you're not down 21-3, the way they played in the third quarter, you're like, oh, this is definitely a game. If that doesn't, but my observation there was nothing super inventive or crazy about the play calling. They ran the ball successfully with Tyrone Tracy. Right. They made some. I mean, Card didn't have a great game. And
tempo.
No, Card actually played. He had some pretty bad throws.
The one interception that was not an interference was. I don't even understand what happened. It was one of the worst throws I've ever seen.
He thought the receiver was going to run.
That must.
I think that's exactly. I think it was a breaking the wrong way. DB. And it was just, you misread the defense, that'll happen. You know what I mean? That's the kind of thing where it's like, okay, he looked okay. He looked okay this last game. But when Purdue played with pace, and again, played between the 20s or played between the 15s, looked like they could move the ball, right? Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, the first two drives, it was field position that kind of didn't allow Purdue to move the ball at all, and you had to instantly punt the ball away. And then all of a sudden, it was the same kind of gashing. You're not spying the quarterback. The DBs are
Is this coaching staff going to realize that these teams do watch film? Because Wisconsin clearly went to school on Purdue.
Oh, yeah.
On Purdue's defense. Like, I don't think Mordecai is Garrett Schrader. I don't think that's his game.
They don't run that.
But the three quarterbacks that they played in their three losses, along with Mikey Keene, they're not bad quarterbacks.
Oh no, they're not.
You know what I mean?
Mordecai's good. He's
all
a good
three of
Big
the
Ten
teams
quarterback.
are good. All three quarterbacks are good, right?
Yeah. Right. And if you're gonna get, I mean, again, not for the first time, the offensive line of the opponent gave their quarterback an ungodly amount of time. I mean, when you can go through all your reads, then go through them
multiple times, it felt,
and then decide to run, and you're still not touched. Like, that's amazing.
Well, one thing about that, speaking of going through their reads or not being touched, Purdue had the exact opposite, right? No time to go through reads, no time to. I mean, even when Card was, trying to step up in the pocket, he couldn't effectively do that because it wasn't just collapse from the back; the pocket would collapse up the middle too. He ran the ball, 11 or 13 times, something like that. And so many of those times were not designed. It was just him running for his life. The offensive line, that was their worst performance, even worse than when they were bandaged together and they had the fourth or fifth center playing the game. It was a bad game. Bad game.
So game plan, to be fair, Walters was saying even in the post game, he was shocked at how flat the team came out, and then they kind of came out again. So at least he's not trying to paper over it. Right?
No, he's not. But this is. I bet him saying I'm shocked is like fingernails on the chalkboard for the people that are impatient.
Of course.
I mean, because he's saying it a lot. That's my point. He's saying, I didn't see that coming. I was surprised at this. I was shocked at that. And this is the whole thing. Anish, we can roll this right in, or we can talk more of the game, but we can roll this right into the point that you and I made, not being recorded, was that as Purdue fans deal with the growing pains of a new coach, Notre Dame is also dealing with this. So this isn't something that's completely outlandish. We're watching.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. But I mean, it's a big point. I think that idea that Marcus Freeman is actually learning on the job tells you that Swarbrick, right? Who's retiring next year, he also saw the upside was greater than going through the whole thing and saying, okay, we're going to go throw $1 billion at this guy's feet because we think it's a better bet. He thought, okay, we'll take our lumps. What did Notre Dame have? 6 losses last year? Is that right?
No, so I also thought
5?
that Jay Money and I were talking about this offline at the tailgate about this same thing, and then we looked it up. Notre Dame won 9 games. It's fun when your bad seasons are 9 games.
Goodness gracious.
I agree. And that's the other thing for Freeman, and we'll get to this section of the
Did they
pod
lose them
because
all in the first half of the season?
they
They've
did.
lost the
They-
first two, I think.
I think they opened 0-3 or 1-3
I think
or
1 and
something
2.
like that.
Yeah.
1-2, and then
we
then
can
they
look this up.
they
Here
righted the
we
ship.
go.
Yeah.
Are you saying what?
So it's exactly our favorite Marcus Freeman. The two things. So I would like to call the coaches out just to say like,
Oh, I think keep going. I think we started, and I think we can keep going.
you
I think we
need
should.
a more creative play calling when you know that the roster in certain areas is deficient,
Right.
particularly. And for Harrell again, I'm not completely against Harrell. There are times when the offense is clicking. I think it was in the third quarter when tempo was high and it was just moving down the field. Everything was looking great. Maybe this was in the second quarter, and it was like this is what we should be doing. We shouldn't be allowing Wisconsin to reset their defense. We should be moving on momentum. All of these things are good.
What's the thing? The air raid offense actually plays itself into playing with pace. I just don't understand why we haven't seen more of that. You've seen it like 3 times this season. It seems like where they've just been like, okay, we're gonna run quickly. They have to change a couple things to make the season successful.
Pretending like this offensive line can sustain a traditional running game to complement that air raid is something that we can't do anymore.
But it's not a bit. Here's the problem, and this comes down to the assessment of the talent at hand. It's not just Walters. It's Walters, Harrell, Kane, and everybody else. They're all saying the same things when you hear them talk to the press in the last 2 weeks, and that is, we've looked good in practice. The reason you look good in practice is you're playing against yourself.
Well,
and when you're going against teams that are big and strong and fast, it's a different ballgame.
But there are specifically 2 places, cornerback and left tackle, where I don't understand even how they could look. Like Purdue has really good players on the other side of those 2 players. And I don't not the starting cornerback, but it's no secret that Cam Allen has had struggles this year. It's no secret that Musa has had some really difficult times starting the year. And the people across from them, the slot receivers and the edge rushers, are really good at, like, Purdue has really good players there. So I also struggle to see how they aren't struggling in practice if they are squaring off against good players. And that's the other thing is, like, you need to scheme around them. And at this point, it is kind of costing you. Like, everybody's part in this is kind of costing, right?
Yeah, it's a confluence of nothing really going the way it should be going, right? There hasn't been a progression of Hudson Card getting comfortable yet. We haven't seen that. I mean, the hardest thing for me is when people are so short-sighted that they're saying, well, I guess Card isn't that good, or I guess Walters isn't that good. I'm like, I don't even like thinking that way. I just don't know how you have the crystal ball to tell that yet.
That's it. Yeah.
It's very, very early. It's very early.
You made a good point of this in the quickcast, or no, maybe in the pregame or something like that, which was you don't get points for calling this early. You just sound like a jerk. Like, you just sound like an ass.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get
and none of your friends are going to be like, yep, good job.
Excellent.
Good job. You bailed on this whole thing.
You bailed before anybody else.
Exactly. You can go bet the under. You can be congratulated that way. But, like, you don't get credit from Purdue fans for jumping 3 games in, 4 games in.
Well, then what are you doing? What are you doing as a fan? I don't even understand.
That's the thing I get. You're living a miserable life, but there are tons of people, and I see it on Twitter more than anything, just how miserable some people are. They want to be miserable, and they want you to be miserable.
Twitter's such a happy place usually. I'm surprised that's what you're.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
But I also, not only what are you doing as a fan, but like, what years of Purdue football have you been watching where you are expecting only good things to happen and no growing pains ever? Right. I'm just curious.
To me, there are so many people who are like, I was expecting a rebuild year, but I was expecting 6-6.
That's not a rebuild
and I'm like,
year.
okay. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how long you have been following Purdue. No time in the
At no
history of
time.
Purdue football,
Correct.
has 6-6 been the rebuild year? Has 6-6 been a reload year, a reset of
Brom's
expectations
first
year?
year is what people are pointing at, because they went 6-6 in the regular season, and it was, his first year. It's legitimately, that's what, but I'm just answering your question. That's what they're seeing as, that's an acceptable rebuild.
That
And-
was so far beyond our expectations.
Yeah.
That
Anybody
was,
who says they did, yeah.
that wasn't a
absolutely.
baseline of expectation.
We were
though.
blown away that happened.
We were blown away that 6 wins would happen. And in preseason, I said the same thing. I would be blown away if we reached a bowl game. And I know that we were trying to, we saw the path towards it, but it was like,
Buckle up, buddy.
we knew that growing pains would happen here. And the other side of this is that Brom also had 2-win and 4-win seasons. This is
one of them, the COVID year. I always throw it
just
out.
throw it out. Just
Yeah.
throw it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
But
the
he had a
4-win
really good
season
season.
afterwards.
Yeah.
The 4-win
That's why
season
he's the national
afterwards, it was the only year, I think, with both David Bell and Rondale Moore, was that the COVID year. Anyway, it was like, at no point is it you have to win 6 games or it's a failure. Maybe you can count. Maybe you can say the very, very small prime window of Tiller, where 6 wins would have been a disappointment. But
in
that
Motor
being
City
said, that was the
Boiler-
peak. That's the peak of the program.
He says this for Tiller. Motor City Boiler says Tiller's first year is beyond expectations too. Obviously, yes, fair. That was 1997, so you're dating yourself a little there, buddy. That was 26 years ago. So
But
you got to be
here, hold on.
35.
Can I talk
40
about
to
the list?
remember that?
Can I
Oh, yeah.
talk about this?
We're going to
don't
go
look
into
at the
we
notebook.
we
Man,
joke about the
that-
boiled sports analytics.
Look at that. That's not an
analytics
envelope.
desk.
So for those of you who think that
Look at my
analysis
typical notes.
and data is only done on spreadsheets, before computers, there were what were they? Green. My dad was an accountant. I should know this. Those pads that the accountants used, ledgers, and that's basically how Boiler does his analytics
It
work.
is.
He does it
It
still
is.
with a pencil, like a man.
Yeah.
And
He's got the green.
he only
visor.
has the computer for this show. He doesn't. People don't know that. He
No,
builds
everything's
speakers
done analog at my
out
house.
of random pieces of plastic around his house. That's
My
what he
phone
does.
has a rotary dial. All of my
A
phones.
rotary dial cell phone. They're very hard to find.
They're
but
harder to find, but they're
But
worth it.
there's
when
a
you
certain
can find
retro element to it.
Very
It's
durable.
Cool. Man, when he has to make a quick call to like an Uber, man, it's sorry. Does anybody even know the joke I'm making about pulse dialing? Anish, you didn't have pulse dialing, did you?
I had it, but no. I when you would visit the home of old people, but
Right,
not growing
right.
up as a human. No.
I had a pulse phone, but I had a pulse phone that was a
Yes, and you dial it, and then you had to wait for all the
and you have to
numbers
listen
go.
like it was a rotary phone. It's like,
So that was there in India. Like when we were doing that in India, you'd have to wait for the pulses before you hit
you
the
hated
next
when they
one.
had a 9 in their number because you're like, oh, Christmas.
BS Analytics desk, boiler down.
Okay. So I think this is important. But the problem is it might put you, if you're an optimist, you may be put in on the other side after you listen. But I thought there are a couple things to look at. Okay. When we look back to the history of Purdue coaches, and I'm going to call this, is it fair to say 1978 is recent history?
Not anymore.
No.
Okay.
But
So I went back pretty far. That's my point. Okay. I think what percentage of our listeners, I know we have some, which I love it. My dad comes on here, my uncle comes on here, that remember back into the 60s. But I would say we're dealing with the majority of people here only remember back that far, right? 78 is pretty far back, right? So Jim Young, okay, and a lot of people didn't start their fandom of Purdue until they were in college, like you, Jay, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
I mean that shortens your memory of what Purdue.
Sadly,
was.
it's still 30 years. But
Exactly. That's the thing. You talked about everybody dating themselves. So I'm going to go back to Jim Young's hiring. Okay. And I looked at a couple things that were important here. I looked at the age of the coach. Did they have previous head coaching experience? And then the first 3 seasons. Okay. And I think this is interesting to see. So Jim Young, 1978, I believe. He was a head coach at Arizona before he came to Purdue. He's 41 years old when he started. Okay. 5-6, followed by 9-2-1, and then 10-2. Okay. And I didn't go into any further, but the whole point is those first 3 years usually tell you a pretty good chunk.
4 losses over 2 years.
Right.
A hero.
Right.
It's insane.
But he was 5-6 first year, right? So that's a big deal. Okay. Leon Burtonette, who I remember Burtonette well. That's Jim Everett. That's like my favorite middle school type, or early, just before middle school. Jim Everett. He was 39 years old when he was hired. This is crazy to me that he was that young. He had no head coaching experience. He was hired off Purdue previous coaching staff.
This is who, Burnett or Young? Who's this?
Burnett. 3-8 to start off. Then he went way up to 3-7-1.
Nice.
And then had the magic season 7-5 with Everett slinging the ball. Took him to the Peach Bowl. They lost to Virginia. Okay, so they went to 1 bowl. Young went to 2 bowls, I think, in those first 3 years. Okay, I think he had Blue Bonnet and turnip cotton. No, it's not cotton. Blue Bonnet. Somebody could tell me of it. So then another team I remember, I called into the Fred Akers show. I was old enough to do that. Okay, so Fred Akers was a previous head coach, of course, at Texas. He had Jay for you. He had multiple 11-win seasons at Texas, by the way.
Oh, I don't know Fred Akers' history.
But he was kind of a wash-up.
Taking a paycheck, wasn't he? By the time he got to Purdue, he was cashing in.
Well, he had 5 wins his last year at Texas, okay? But at Purdue, he was 49 years old when he started at Purdue. And he had already had multiple 11-win seasons.
Things were different back then. 49 was an old man.
Right, right. So he was 3-7-1. We see that with Bert Net too. And then he went way up to 4-7. And then he went to 3-8. The funny thing is, I'm taking just 3 years, right? The only coach that really only had 3 years on this list is Hazel. Okay. But you can tell it's pretty accurate. At three years, you can tell what a coach is.
Oh, I think 3 years is fair. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here's another guy who didn't have any coaching experience, Jim Coletto, 47 years old, 4-7, 4-7, 1-10. That was my freshman year.
Was it the 1-10 year, the 1 win? That wasn't the 1 year Matt Pike beat the hell out of California, right? That was a different year.
No, it's a different year. I think it's the year before.
They were still not good, and Cal was ranked.
Right.
And
right.
they inexplicably
but Coletto was kind of a guy that a lot of people thought was a good hire because of his resume, his where he came from. Joe Tiller, he was a head coach at Wyoming. He had a double-digit win season at Wyoming. He was 55 years old when hired. Okay. He went to 3 bowl games. He started, of course, as we were talking about earlier, 9-3, 9-4, 7-5. Damn. That's okay if you're into that sort of thing, guys.
And then people got mad he wasn't winning the games.
Well, everybody did. Because remember, manage your expectations.
This is what happens when you think it is given, after a guy does it a couple of years and you think it's your divine right.
Yeah.
Right. You're like, and now we're dedicating a tunnel to him on Saturday.
Yeah, right. The next guy. So now we're obviously in the modern era of what I'd say we're well into the modern era after Joe Tiller. You have Danny Hope, who was not a lot of people's favorite pick. He was head coach at Eastern Kentucky. He was solid at Eastern Kentucky, lower division though. He was 50 years old when he started, 5-7, 4-8, and then the big 7-6 year where they finished at the heart of Texas Bowl.
Or no,
Dallas. No.
Yeah,
I thought because didn't he have one more? I thought no. The 7-6 year, I think.
Oh, you're right.
Motor City, and then the year he got fired,
and he was at the bowl.
Well, he coached through. They sat him down. Burke sat him down at 3-6 and said, "We're going to make a change at the end of the year." And Hope, who loved being, as you always said, he loved being the coach. He agreed to coach out the season as a lame duck, and they won the last 3 games for him because it was typical Morgan Burke decision making, like 3 winnable games ahead, and that's when you get rid of them. So then he can win them. That's why I have that great picture that I used a couple times. There's teams carrying them off on their shoulders after the IU game.
Yeah.
They're 6-6 and they go to a bowl.
There's a good question here. Pinola Photography says Tiller brought a staff with him too, right? This staff is still getting used to each other. Okay, so this is interesting. Well, he brought almost the entire staff, and he lost one to cancer before they started coaching at Purdue.
Okay, it
was wild. So he had almost the entire staff, and then he lost one the next year. Or Olson, I think he went to the NFL, or 2 years later, 2 years in, something like that. But yeah, he brought his staff. He brought them with him, most of them. So then we got the most fun of all, Daryl Hazel era. 49 years old when hired. He was head coach at Kent State. Started off with a bang. All you guys who remember this, 1-11. Then he improved greatly, 3-9, and then 2-10 before. And I will include his 4th season, which was only 3-3. He was gone before, if you don't remember. He only made it to 3-3, but he did get to click his heels together after they beat him.
Which is amazing because at 3-3, I do distinctly remember thinking, well, this is better than it's been. I remember thinking that. It's 500 halfway through the season. You were like,
oh, dude, yeah.
It's
That's
again,
like
it's prime thinking. It's prime thinking of the last, AD, which is like, you should have known at that 2-10 year, like that the year after the 3 win, right? So you give 1 year to reset. You've won 2 more games the next year. You still don't really know. And then that 3rd year, you should have made the call, right? Yeah. But we're Purdue, and so it's.
Well, it was Babinski's first order of business, wasn't it? Didn't he come in?
It was after Babinski. It was Burke didn't make the call, right?
Right.
And
Babinski
so Burke
came in and fired him.
But Burke, it could have been his last thing. It probably ended up timing really perfectly for Brom to come. But yeah,
I hate. Well, I was going to ask a question, but I hate to. This is so dark, but I've already started, so I can't reel it back in now. Let's say that Ryan Walters started with those exact same numbers as Hazel, which I don't believe will happen. No, would he get that much rope from Babinski? Will he get half a fourth season?
No.
I don't think he can go.
If Babinski is still there and he goes 1-3, then 2 wins, I don't think so.
That 3rd year is
I think
when
that'll be
you have to show.
That 3rd year is when you know. And that's all that we are asking. We are saying, if you are off board 3 games into this, goodbye. I will come back to you a year and a half from now and start this conversation.
And if you turn out to be right, Anish will give you a cookie.
Great. Congratulations. Awesome. I've got a stale chocolate chip cookie sitting
with
on my counter
on
right now. I'll give you that one. Exactly. But like 3 games into a 4 games into a 37-year-old's career.
I know.
No, you can't yet. Yeah. And so this is great. So I think the moral there is that 3 seasons in, how long do you give him is the question that we keep saying. By 2.5 years,
that's 36 games. That's 36 games.
That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of games. It's more than 4. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so
you're currently 10% into that. So maybe pump the brakes just a little.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see.
And it's not, and we don't at Boys Sports, actually, we don't ever like to play the whole, this could have happened because Boiler Dad will then go, and I could experience a growth spurt. That's his favorite thing to say to us. But
I could grow hair on top of my head and become a model.
As much as you come down on the start, they led by double digits against Fresno. They had the ball in their hands to win at the end. And I don't even want to play that game with Syracuse, even though I think Purdue can play with that Syracuse team, even this iteration of Purdue. But they lost by 15.
I mean, shit, if you don't take a half off versus Wisconsin.
Exactly.
Just make it a game.
But let's just say the one that was in their hands.
Hold on.
Then they're suddenly 2-2, and you're like, all right.
So I know I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth a little bit here, and I'm going to do it anyway. But the Purdue fans are not that demanding. All we really want is something to cheer for. Like we want the team to compete. I think generally we want them to compete. And the first half they didn't compete. Fresno State to me is a little bit better than what we saw in Wisconsin. That bull crap in the first half is just horrible football. I don't want to see that again. That's why I said that's shades of some of these dark eras that I'm talking about here. I tweeted it. I mean, like when you get down by 14 in the first quarter, you are flirting with disaster, obviously, right? And it wasn't like it was like bang, they had a pick 6 and then Purdue punted it and they returned it no, it was like Purdue's going to hold every other play and then they're just going to give the ball, give short field, and then the defense is going to trip all over themselves, right? It was like everything's bad here. Everything's bad.
We weren't even forcing third downs.
No.
I think they were like 2.
No, that's not true. They were 8 of 8 to start the game on third.
No, but I felt like the first quarter there were maybe 2. Because I just distinctly remember.
Could be right, but that's a lot of third downs in the second quarter if that's true. Like they were on fire, and Purdue would just let them have the chunk plays. Like it was ridiculous on third down.
Zach Young over on the side says, and this is something that's worth noting. Plus, the 3 losses are to teams that are a combined 12-1 right now.
That's
a 3
good
receiving votes. Right. One of them, the worst one, if judging by Power 5 distinction, is ranked. Dino just coached Syracuse to their first undefeated non-conference ever. Their first undefeated non-conference season.
Last year. How's that possible?
No, they didn't. Yes, they didn't win all of their non-conference games.
6-0, I promise. But
6-0, really? I thought Schrader was hurt before the 6th game.
that the big stat was, and everybody was like, it's nuts because Syracuse has never been great, but they've never been bad. And Wisconsin is Wisconsin, and it's under Fickle. I know, they're a good team. You can't really, they're resetting. They're still trying to find their identity. Their running back, their kind of 1A running back went down. And so Purdue could have hung with them, but they didn't. These aren't bad teams, right? And this is a tougher slate. This is a tougher opening, I think. This is a tougher opening 4 games than the last 6 years has seen.
You know what it was, Anish? They didn't play. They got right into conference play, and they did start 6-0. Then they played Clemson and lost. Then they played Notre Dame and lost. So that's why they didn't lose. Oh no, that's not a non-conference for them.
Well,
right?
Notre Dame football is technically non-conference.
Right? In football, they just play an ACC schedule,
which is nonsense.
And then
it's utter nonsense. They're an ACC team, but
so they did start 6-0, finished 7-6. Wee. So,
gosh,
but yeah, great points. And again, that's not to make you feel like okay, I should be happy with this 1-3.
Yes,
but they're not losing to say, I don't know, Akron.
There's Q. I think that's the guy I met right there.
Yeah, Q actually earlier asked you to give him a shout out because
I gave him a shout out on the post game. Q.
Look, Q, we don't take requests for shout. This is not the shout out.
I gave him one. He requested in person. He
wanted it on this one,
but he wasn't there for the post game, and I gave him one. I gave him the shout out.
Speaking of the other side of the analytics desk, the BS analytics desk that actually did homework this time.
Yeah.
So that's historic look at Purdue.
Well,
right?
Wait, I got one more. I got one more because I think it's important. Okay, one more. I think this. So I've already given the point that there are a couple things people have asked. One, has Purdue hired 2 good coaches in a row? Well, according to this, not really.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Not since 1978. 0. So before that, and people who can remember further than my life, you can tell me. Okay. Here's the other thing. Okay. So Jim Young started kind of poorly, 5-6, so sub 5, and then he boom right away, second year. So there's not a lot of evidence and memory of Purdue fans saying, "Oh, we can get better." But if you look at this, there also weren't any coaches that were hired in like infancy of their coaching. Right? He's the youngest coach, and he is a position coach coming into the job. So that's the whole thing. He could get a lot better. He could get a lot better if he learns a few tricks. Here's the other thing. Mollenkopf, Fat Jack. Okay, so you go way back. I think Mollenkopf is the standard bearer for Purdue football. He was 53 years old when he started Purdue. He had no head coaching experience. Okay, he started his first season 3-4-2. Okay, second season 5-4. These game numbers don't make any sense to anybody. Third season 6-1-2. Okay, Mollenkopf went to a total of 1 bowl game. I told these guys this off the air. Went to a total of 1 bowl game because the Big Ten only let their members go to the Rose at that point. He went to 1 bowl game, and he had tons of wins. Right, he's I think his winning percentage is mid 60s, maybe high 60s. So the whole thing that I think we look at is there's a chance that he can get a lot better. There's a chance that this coaching staff can get better. But I think the hardest medicine to swallow for some, and I know some people that are talking this way, good friends of mine, family of mine, saying that this job shouldn't be on-the-job learning. And then, Anish, I know you have a lot of counters to this with really good.
That's wrong. Like in current.
I don't know if it's wrong, but it's an opinion.
No,
I don't know if it's wrong to say that you want Purdue to hire a guy with head coaching.
No.
I don't think.
I didn't say that the wish is wrong. Yeah. I'm saying the reality and the expectation. You can hope that a Purdue reset year is 6-6. That doesn't make it correct. Purdue is not a job, but Purdue got that's why I don't fault the letting Hazel stay for an extra year, because it timed out perfectly where you could get the established guy who was a little bit older, had significant head coaching experience, and was a clear rising star that fit exactly Purdue's profile, that you could lure in Jeff Brom to Purdue. That does not happen. That so rarely happens. There are 16, I have a list of 17 coaches hired in the last 4 years, all at programs equal to or greater than Purdue's lot in things. Some of these, like Marshall, is clearly kind of a lower level team here, but all hired coordinators or associate head coaches with no head coaching experience, all between the ages of 33 in Kenny Dillingham's instance at ASU, and 45 is the oldest, which is, Mike Elko.
One in there that I would have loved to have gotten, and man, did they strike gold, it appears, is Dan Lanning.
Dan Lanning was a position coach, or was it
37? I think.
Yeah.
Dan Lanning
on Anish's big list.
Dan Lanning was on the staff when Cristobal left, and was poached back to Miami, wasn't he? Or
yes.
was it the
No, he went back to Miami.
Yeah, and so he went back to Miami, and so there was a little bit of a little.
Talk about a program that keeps hiring good coaches.
Oh, and no! So that was it. Dan Lanning was the same profile, an SEC coordinator, just like Cristobal, that went back. So
Where
he was
was
Georgia's
he? Where
DC.
was he?
Georgia's DC.
Georgia.
Okay. Well, here, by the way, there's I know it wasn't on-the-job training, but Georgia hired Smart had never been a head coach when they hired him.
So I actually have Kirby Smart. He's not on the list, but Kirby Smart and Ryan Day technically do qualify for this. Kirby Smart is 47 currently. He coached Georgia in 2016. 2016 is 7 years ago, so he was 41 when he was hired, and he went to the national championship game in year 2.
Kirby Smart.
Ohio State and Georgia are the 2 best jobs in the country. I mean,
Kirby Smart is like, I was just saying, everyone looked older 30, 40 years ago. Kirby Smart is the one that still looks like an old man at 47.
He looks like a throwback to the 80s, right?
Right. When 40 to 47 was like an old man. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone down those rabbit holes on like Twitter where people post pictures.
Oh, it's crazy. People in high school, they look like they're 26.
One that sticks in my head is the pictures of Jim Croce. You know the singer, Jim Croce? Those pictures, like the famous one, the album, because he died young, the famous album cover that you're all thinking of, he's like 24 years old or something. He looks like he's 48.
Nobody ever drank a single glass of water before.
Nobody drank water. Everybody drank alcohol. Everybody smoked incessantly. It's incredible. But so Kirby doesn't look bad for 47, but he's like our age. I think he looks like an old man.
Somebody, did you hear
Listen,
this?
I don't compliment you guys often, but you guys look younger than Kirby Smart.
guys, hold on. Speaking of looking younger and the 80s and old, listen to this. This is great. The movie Cocoon, which came out, I think, in like 87.
Are you going to do the Wilford Brimley line?
Wilford Brimley was 50 in the movie, and they found the Fountain of Youth. He was 50.
Right.
He was 50 in the movie. I'm 48.
You have to search for this. There's a Twitter account that simply tracks what they call the Wilford Brimley line, the Wilford Brimley Cocoon line. And when a celebrity turns 50, they announce their birthday and say, this celebrity is now the same age as Wilford Brimley in Cocoon. And it gets progressively funnier every year because it'll be like
Matt Damon recently crossed it.
Right.
It's
right. Tom Cruise was like 60. Stuff like that. And you're like, but it'll be some gorgeous, Salma Hayek has hit the Wilford Brimley Cocoon line. And you're like, what? Like, yeah.
By the way, on this list, this is kind of lower levels of football. By the lower levels of this. Speaking of fountains of youth, or maybe just that time is never is always moving forward. Timmy Chang is back at Hawaii. That rules. Like,
I can't believe that. Now, I don't follow Hawaii football close enough, I will admit. But when you said that, I said something like, I feel like he was I know it wasn't just, but I was like, I feel like he was just the quarterback. Because I feel like he was the quarterback since they had that really good little run. But then I looked, and he's 41. I would have bet $1 million he was younger than Nish, and he's not.
That's right. He was hired. He was hired when he was 40. And Hawaii, that job is a disaster. And they just brought home the favorite son. They're like, please come live in Hawaii and
in Hawaii and coach a football program where what can the expectations even be?
Exactly.
It sounds. Why did June Jones stay there forever? Because it's an amazing job. Like.
Man, no. What are you doing in Syracuse?
Dino Babers, go coach Hawaii. He's from there, isn't he?
Yes,
from
and
Hawaii?
It's just like he's just
you have
moving the boulder up the hill
in Northwest New York State.
It's terrible.
But on this list, every game, I mean, that's pretty awesome. And
which is the most weird looking, like a coach is like coaching his ass off and he's got a lay on.
Yeah,
it's like when
I support it.
Like when Izzo wore the elf costume and then was like yelling at the refs.
Right. And everybody's used that photo because it's amazing.
It was funny for a few minutes and then it looked really weird.
Yes.
Everybody, whenever they have like the coaches, the Maui one, and they have
Or the
like
Hawaiian
particularly
shirt.
angry. You have sneakers in your like your
Nobody
Hawaiian
looks as
shirt,
good
you
in
just-
that
yeah,
get up as Matt Painter, though.
Matt Painter.
He looks like he's on his
Oh.
way to the buffet at the luau. He's got the Hawaiian shirt kind of over the belly. Oh man, that is a dad on vacation right there.
Oh, it's so good. On this list, you have Arizona State, Notre Dame, Oregon, Mississippi State,
Uh-oh.
Washington State, SMU, Virginia, Washington, Baylor, South Carolina, Duke, and then you have Marshall, Hawaii, South Florida. All in the last 4 or 5 years have hired first-time head coaches at around the age of 40.
That's where things are going.
This, if you are not one of the marquee programs where you can hire away from one of these folks, or even if you're Notre Dame and you see that you have a shooting star among you, it is worth taking the short-term lumps because of the way that college football is changing.
Well, think about how rare a like Mac Brown hire is anymore. Hiring the old man who has been successful and maybe knows what he's doing and has proven he knew what he was doing. Like that's rare anymore. Even Saban, when he was hired, he was 50s, mid to late 50s. I mean, he's over 70 now. He's been there like 15, 16 years.
The last version of Purdue would have hired Kevin Sumlin, right? I mean, like, you have
some of us advocated for that, but yes,
head coaching experience, right now, and you could do it. It's not the worst idea to bring him back on staff.
I would love that
advisor,
so
just to say, hey, like, how do you run?
He didn't forget everything about football. I know Arizona was not a good situation.
No,
like,
that's an interesting thing right there. You say though, bringing this advisor thing on, it's a relatively cheap proposition, right? And you've got stacks of gold bars in the basement because of Big Ten network money, right? I mean, it's not an effing bad idea.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
As a New Jersey, a little swipe at New Jersey, I hear there.
Yeah, he's got the gold bars there for all of the emergencies, just in case. Just in case.
He's pounding his desk, telling you he's not going anywhere. It's like,
it's so good.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if you don't go anywhere.
But speaking of, Jed Fish's name is on this list. Jed Fish, what a name! But he's a little bit
Fish. I don't even know who that is.
He's Arizona's head coach now, and he is not very good.
Are you messing with us?
He was a Patriots quarterbacks coach.
Oh, boy.
That is how much of a disaster.
I got a little trick for you. Don't hire an ex-Patriots coach.
Yes.
Well, it's so weird, right?
He's the next one. Speaking of the Nick Saban, School for Gifted and Talented Children, the rehab coaches.
To be fair, the opposite is true of Saban as hiring Patriots coach. His coaches go on and win.
Yes,
Saban coaches go Sark, Lane, Kirby Smart,
Lane
Dan
is
Lanning.
he
was at Georgia. Sorry, he's under.
Well, I mean,
so it's still
what's the buyout? Jimbo Fisher. I just call him the buyout now. But Jimbo, for a while, was a good coach. He was a Saban assistant for a fellow West Virginian.
If Jimbo had a normal contract, he'd still be considered a good coach. It's when you get a contract like that, now you got to be superhuman.
Yeah.
I mean,
see, so one of the names on this list is Mike Elko at Duke. 45 years old.
Awesome.
He's the oldest on this list. So he had been a coordinator for a while.
He's 45.
He was a DC. He was DC. He was a Jimbo's DC at Texas A&M. Like all of these guys are have really strong recruiting.
Duke is
4-0 that plus ranked. Their position coach. Mike Elko
ranked. Yeah.
Man, he is currently 13-4 in 2 seasons
at Duke.
So here's the thing. Elko could be a candidate for Michigan State. He could probably hold out for Arkansas.
Well, let's hope he doesn't go to Michigan State and get soiled there.
But he can get one of these big 2 middle tier jobs. I think he could get one this offseason. Would you do that,
out, Mike? Yes.
Would you do that, or would you say you are Duke? You can pay. You've got the coffers, and play it like Mark Stoops,
where a stadium that holds like
30 win.
No, because here's the parallel. The parallel I'll give you. You risk becoming
Campbell.
Thank you. You knew where I was going because that's what Campbell did. I'm going to commit to the
Campbell's
program.
been offered. He's gone through the cycle two or three times.
But the bloom was off the rose now. He's not going to get offered anymore. They're bad.
That's my point. You don't have to go. You don't have to go right now, but you can wait probably a couple of years, right? Campbell, how long's Campbell been there?
But Duke, I think Duke at this point is maybe a better job than Iowa State. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
This is a peak, but how much better can Duke get than a 13-4 run where you're ranked, you're 4-0? This could be like, I mean, this could be their pinnacle. Another win or two.
You're never going to face pressure at Duke. Never. You're never facing pressure.
I don't know about that. Cutcliffe was getting some pressure towards the end.
You're right. But you've got 8 years before you're facing pressure.
Which is bullshit because Cutcliffe was fantastic there. Yeah, he was another guy who, to your point, Anish, he followed the logic you're making right now.
Campbell's in his eighth season.
Eighth season.
Yeah.
You know me. I don't know anything about time.
No,
Cutcliffe did get tire kicking on him many times over the years. In fact, I think Tennessee made a serious run at him, and he had coached at Tennessee, if I'm remembering correctly.
And he was Peyton Manning's quarterback's coach.
Okay,
and so
that's it.
Obviously wanted him at his school.
And Cutcliffe was like, nah, I'm listening to Anish. What pressure will I ever face at Duke? I like it here.
Just be a millionaire. Be a low-stress millionaire. Low-stress, low-expectations millionaire. In the triangle. Which the better job, but that's what I'm saying. It's probably better kind of natural resources job than something like Iowa State.
Well, and you also would live in the triangle instead of Ames.
Arkansas, maybe. You know what I mean? If you get the Arkansas job, sure, on paper, they're going to pay you a buttload
of money. The Pitman's not going anywhere.
Nah, I don't know. I hope the Pitman doesn't go anywhere.
Anish, you offend the Pitman.
I love the Pitman so much.
He nuked his social media. Did you see that?
Speaking of strange coaches, like we caught at the beginning of this, he's so strange, but perfectly Arkansas. He's like a perfect, that would be great. I need more IU weirdos in my life.
They'd be good. They'd probably be good.
Okay, guys, here we talked about this off, so I'm cheating a little bit, but who is weirder, Tom Crean or Tom Allen?
Either way, I don't want either of them to leave my life. I like them both.
Yeah,
in my
sadly,
life,
one is fading into oblivion right now.
They were not there at the same time, were they? Or were they? No, I don't think they were.
I genuinely think Tom Allen is a nicer human. Like, I think he'd be more pleasant to be around. I think Tom Crean is a nightmare.
Because the weirdness never stops.
He's a weirdo and
he's intense. He's hype.
I think Tom Allen is earnest in his Tom Allen is not a disingenuous guy. I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
Tom Allen is like a character out of The Office. Like, he
loves being the regional manager.
Completely oblivious. Loves his job. Exactly. I was just going to say, he's like Danny Hope. He's Ben Davis's head coach. He loves being IU's head coach. That's why he loves it. That's why we don't hate Danny Hope. We, in fact, miss Danny Hope because Danny loves the job so much.
Fun coaches we've ever had.
So it's like, I think IU and the 2019s, if you look at that coaching staff, Kane Womack was defensive coordinator. He's shaping up to be, like an SEC coach or a Big Ten coach, soon. He's at South Alabama. What's his Washington's name? What's the head coach over there? Kellen DeBeer was offensive coordinator. Right. You have Penix, who was, recruited.
Pronounce the name correctly, please.
I mean, it's like, speaking of get lightning in a bottle, like that's nuts. That's absolutely insane.
Not only that, but you could, I thought you were going to go down the road of Purdue's coaching staff during the darkest times are now coaching like
all
Marcus
over
Freeman
great jobs. Yeah.
And do you guys know who his offensive coordinator is? Jared Parker.
Jared Parker. Yep.
Who was the interim coach?
That's the weirdest twist of the whole thing to me.
It's so bizarre.
He's just gone up and up and up the ladder, by the way.
But Notre Dame has to come to Purdue for their football coach, their basketball coach, and their women's basketball coach.
Come on, guys. It's a disaster. It's fine. A disaster.
Well, but I love having that little thing to be like, well, when you guys need a good coach, I know we're going to come pilfer.
Okay, here. I got another question, either or. Okay, whose rant was, I hate the word cringy because it's such a, well, whose rant was more uncomfortable or pissed you off more? Kirby Smart's or Ryan Day's? Kirby Smart's before. Huh?
What was he mad about?
He was pissed off that they didn't get a respect.
Oh, shut the hell up. I'm so tired of that.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The Ryan Day thing is the same thing. So which one gets you more angry?
So anytime anybody is angry at Lou Holtz, I take their side. As ludicrous as it is,
Lose 86 and was asked on a Notre Dame radio program to say something. What do you think? And I read a great thing today that said he was right about saying Ohio State's soft, because when they have been punched in the mouth by Michigan, they've
By the way,
folded.
Notre Dame drove down the field on them without throwing a pass.
Ohio State couldn't. How many fourth downs did they
couldn't
screw up?
stop them. It's just like boom, boom,
It's
boom.
the perfect outcome for it's Marcus Freeman showing he belongs there, and then Notre Dame making a series of terrible mistakes and tripping up on the goal line. I mean, tripping up just right.
Learning on the job. We alluded to it earlier.
That's it.
Marcus Freeman.
That was a big learning.
The last two plays, he had only 10 men on the field, and he didn't sub, even though the rules said he could, because he didn't think he could, and he didn't have a timeout, and he didn't want to get a penalty. And the penalty would have moved them closer to the goal.
He wouldn't have gotten a penalty, right?
They would not have gotten a penalty.
Because it would have allowed a
Ohio
substitution.
State made a substitution. The officials would have let him
hold over the ball.
But nobody realized on either team that
this is the kind of stuff, even for us, obviously for us, after the fact, it's really easy to say. I'm sure, especially for them, afterwards, when you're watching tape, it's so obvious. But in the moment, this is where you need experience. This is where,
okay. I thought you were about to make an excuse.
No, this is where that day of experience matters.
Exactly.
And
where you keep your calm head and you're looking for certain things that the assistants aren't, or you have a guy who's one of his checklist jobs is to make sure we got 11 guys. Like, as dumb as that sounds, that sort of stuff exists in really tight, buttoned up programs, like a Fickle program, where they clearly paid attention to every single detail.
They
were dialed in.
When you're Fickle, and even Cincinnati, which is, I would say, a program at this
some people
point
say
on par with Purdue.
What?
Fickle.
Depends what we're talking about.
You're doing it at Cincinnati, it's lower profile. You're doing it, if you're Kane Womack, you're doing it at South Al. If you're Jeff Brom, you're taking your lumps at Western Kentucky when you're trying out weird stuff. I think that is the point where it's when you start to get at even one of the mid to lower tier Big Ten or SEC teams, and you're doing this for the first time, even the Pittman at Arkansas, his first year, even though he's been around for 30 years, he was having these head coaching moment, strange decision moments, because it's your first year. It's the first time you're doing this. And a lot of times you don't have another head coach on staff because previous head coaches don't like taking assistant coaching jobs. And so, unless they're young, they're still young. And so, this is what got us into this, right? What got us into this whole conversation, which was Marcus Freeman is learning on the job. Marcus Freeman is 36 years old. Got the job at 36 years old. I think Ryan Walters and Marcus Freeman are
exact
the
same.
exact same.
Hired at 36, he's 37 now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, and Freeman, you get a little bit more talent. You started out with a little bit more talent, right? Mm-hmm. A similar one that somebody on another podcast was talking about was Zach Arnett. Zach Arnett is was the defensive coordinator at Mississippi State. He was Mike Leach's that was the associate head coach and took over the job after he died. Mm. Mike Leach recruits his players in a specific offensive, fast play calling style, right? And his defensive coordinator, even though he has to create it, opposite him, has his own, idea of what the team should be. And so that flip is just as sudden and just as strange and just as
that's
in
jarring.
Terms of the
that's jarring. That whole thing is jarring, right?
But it's you're going from they lost a whole bunch of players to transfers. They moved from from an offensive to a defensive coach, and Zach Arnett is 36 years old, and he was been a good defensive coordinator. Analytics, have loved his defenses, similar to Illinois and Mizzou's before that. But these are Mississippi State, Purdue. These are similar Arizona State, Vandy hiring Clark Lee from Notre Dame, the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. These are the similar programs.
I heard somebody on Twitter had this idea. They said 9-10 years from now, Ryan Walters is going to be a really good head coach. And I said, well, he's not going to have that much time. Purdue, obviously, Purdue's not going to let him grow up that long. It'll be 4 or 5 years.
If he's still at Purdue, then we've had a lot of good years because
but 9 or 10 years. I mean.
I'm
I
saying
just
if
don't.
he's
I
there
don't.
9 or 10
Somebody made
years,
the point that you can't do this in this era. Have that much patience. I tend to
You can't.
agree. You're not. There's not going to be that much.
we just said that
patience.
earlier that it's
Yeah.
that 3
But
is
so, but the
plenty to
question is,
know.
by year 3, you know, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's we got to wait. The other thing that people were saying, and again, you have alluded to this, Boiler Dowd,
Mhm.
but the upperclassmen are from a recruiting class that ranked, for the next 2 years, are
High
from a
50s,
recruiting
right?
class that is in the 50s. Jeff Brom started out really great, but these are the COVID classes, and that did not work out well for Purdue.
It did
right?
not. Some programs they kind of scored during that time, but a lot of programs didn't. Produce one of those. The other
And
thing,
so,
that other thing you can't discount is the fact you've got so many guys that have never played together, being forced to be the backbone of the team. I think you've got 2 starting offensive linemen and 2 starting defensive linemen, both transferred out. That in itself, because those 2 parts are so important to this team, and we've seen so many examples of the offensive line and the defensive line looking shaky at times. I can't discount those 4 transfers. Those are especially tough for me
Yeah,
to.
but I
Well,
think
it's
there's a
not
lot
just
of
you had
teams.
that and you had graduation. I'm telling you, losing 37 players off one
Yeah.
roster, that's really hard. And so I'm throwing things together here that to me are related. One is that when guys transfer out, there's a ridiculously high percentage of those guys who never play again or never make an impact again, right? So you have all these transfers coming into Purdue, and you're hoping they are all impactful and can do the job, do the role there, right? This is coming from a coaching staff that says, I think this is going to be the fit based on what we think our team will look like. So some of those transfers have done a pretty darn good job. But think about Cole Brevard, for instance, right?
Mhm.
Cole Brevard came in not this year, but last year. And he really didn't have much impact last year at all. It took him a while to get seated here, and maybe even put on. He was pretty heavy. Maybe he just changed his body. I don't know, because he was out of the box. I thought he was going to be a world beater for Brom, and he hardly played last year. This year he's a starter and he's playing all the time. That's the thing, man. This team does not sub enough. Regardless, you got to get some guys up to speed, regardless of situation, because I think as the season plays out, here's the question: you get through October. Let's say you get through 0-4. Okay, worst case scenario. But then November, I think there's one winnable game in October. Is that fair?
I think
In
maybe.
October, yeah. Let's see. October
Is Nebraska
is
at the end of October, beginning of November?
Iowa, Ohio State, Nebraska.
Okay, so I'd say Iowa and Nebraska both. It depends on how moody Ferentz is. Yeah, it's still.
Iowa?
It's this next.
Did you see Did you see? They
look,
don't even have an offense.
I like the fact that Purdue has
First
always
downs.
had a habit of walking into Iowa.
But
and not being
Jeff Brom
afraid.
had a habit of that though. Let's
Four first downs.
Hope won there too. They
he won at Iowa. Hope did.
keep so. I know we beat Iowa. I thought it was there.
Right.
But if only way to find this out.
But okay,
I'll
hold
just
on.
have to
So let's
remember.
think. You're going to get beaten up physically. The next 3-4 weeks are going to be rough. All 4 of those teams are just rough in the trenches. They're big and strong. Okay, even Nebraska. So you get through that. Let's pretend for a second you go 1-3. So now you've got 2 wins, and then you have.
Are you winning this weekend against Illinois, or this is a September game?
You're going for one of these
discounting.
4.
That's not fair. Okay.
Say you win. Let's just have fun.
You're 2. So let's say you're 3. Let's say you're 3.
That would give you 3 wins.
3 wins, and then you have the opportunity to play some teams that you should or could beat, depending on how you're looking at it. But you've already gone through this physical beating.
Meat grinder, yes.
Right? And it's a mental meat grinder too, right? A lot of these guys, it's going to be hard to keep guys super motivated. That's
so
these 2 things really matter. So can you keep the team together if you get beaten up 4 weeks in a row, 3 weeks?
This was my only point about the Big Ten expansion not necessarily being a great thing for Purdue. And it's not that, but like the perfect counter to that is Nebraska was supposed to be good. Problem is when you add 4 teams that are significantly better than Nebraska. was when they entered the Big Ten, right? And so now either the gaps on your schedule or the opportunities on your schedule where you are stacking up things like stacking up Big Ten opponents, like the end of the season where you play Minnesota, Northwestern, and Indiana, are fewer and further between. And that just makes the ins and outs of the season a little bit more difficult. I am always for playing more interesting non-conference games. This is where if you're Purdue, I do understand the impulse. At least this, I will listen to the Twitter or the knucklehead mob here, which is, why not like balance how the Big Ten schedule is getting tougher for Purdue with easier non-conference games? I get it, but I also don't want to be playing Indiana State. I don't think that is useful.
It feels to me like Indiana State's kind of a mainstay of Purdue's schedule, regardless if they're tough or not. Like they just pop back up every 3 seasons?
And it may be it may be athletic directors doing
I think
favors for each other, right?
I think it is.
Giving them money a little bit.
And back when we were there, Jay, it seems like Ball State was almost on the
play a MAC team, play Buffalo, play one of the directional.
And Hizlo came in and they started losing to MAC teams on the regular.
Yeah,
well, that's
Northern Illinois beat the crap out of them. Beat the crap out of them. Remember that? It was like 55 points. Man, that was brutal. By the way,
that's the thing. It's a much darker era than.
So two quick. One quick thought on the schedule that you were just talking about, and then I do want to address, because we're over an hour. I want to address some of the requests we've gotten, but we haven't talked at all about the Illinois game. I hate to talk about must wins, but this one feels pretty important to me, because if you don't win this game, you could be looking at being 1-7, 1-8. Because because then you play at Iowa versus Ohio State, at Nebraska, at Michigan, then finally home. But it's Minnesota, who you never know what you're going to do. So, man, people are already chalking up, Minnesota, Northwestern, IU. Like, you're just going to go on this like winning streak, which I think, it's possible. But if I don't know, man. Like, Northwestern just proved they could come back from 31-10 in the fourth quarter of a Big Ten game. So,
and Purdue hasn't been embarrassed by any of these teams. Like, Purdue hasn't been completely outclassed by any of them. It really was against Wisconsin. Like, Purdue just took a half off, or took a quarter and a half off. You know what I mean? And it's not ideal. I would recommend not doing that. Walters.
Do you guys know what Illinois' defense is ranked in the Big Ten?
I don't want to know, do I?
No, you do. Do you know what they're ranked in the Big Ten?
I don't know.
13th. Do you know what Purdue's defense is ranked in the Big Ten?
Is this total defense of the season?
Yeah.
12th? 14th.
14th.
Yeah, buddy. Bet the over.
This is like a tickle fight, guys. And the good news is, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that because Purdue's defense has just made every quarterback look awesome. But I just don't think they're playing a quarterback or a system that's anywhere near.
Even outside of Purdue, those 3 quarterbacks that beat Purdue were good to very good. Like, I've been like on a college scale. Like, I think Garrett Schrader is awesome. Like, for a college quarterback, he's 47 years old and he is stout and he knows where he's going. He's confident. Yeah. Mikey Keene found the perfect system in Fresno.
Yeah.
That Tedford is incredible. And then what's his face at Wisconsin?
Tanner Mordecai.
Yeah, Mordecai. Solid. Not great.
That's a great name.
Tremendous name. Perfect name.
Yeah.
But like not, he's good. He's solid.
Yeah.
I don't think that Illinois, at least on it matches up with those 3 teams, right? I think this is a more winnable game than before. It's going to be funny. You can spin it either way, right? That Bert knows his former protege pretty well, or that
I don't think there's anything
I don't know. Yeah.
that Purdue's defense is doing right now that's fooling anybody, let alone Bert. I just don't think that even matters in this equation so early. I can't see anything. Like, here's the thing that's annoying me about Purdue right now is that they talked about how they disguise the looks to end up where they are. There's no disguising right now. To me, this defense, they're just trying to get on the field and get off the field. They don't even get that heady.
Again, I don't. Well, against Wisconsin, I do have to say the front seven was not as good as it was in the past games, but that's because Wisconsin has actual
They got
cattle
dudes.
in their front, like in their offensive
Livestock.
line.
Water
It's
buffalo.
just,
They
it's
got
just
big, heavy
incredible.
dudes.
But like the defensive system, and it makes sense coming from a DB or coming from a safety, but a DB, like it depends on those corners playing like doing their job, right? It depends so much on their corners handling it one on one. And that is where a lot of this is falling apart. And that's where the recruiting class seems to be the best of. I know that we don't talk about recruiting because that can change with the wind. And so who knows? But it does seem like that's where most of the wins are coming. And that's where most of the energy in the recruiting
I mean,
is
it just
going,
can,
right?
isn't it? I don't know. Maybe it's because of my old age, but I just have a hard time thinking that many freshmen because these are like real old timey recruits that
It'll
we're
be 2
talking
years
about.
from now. Yeah, it'll
Yeah.
be at least 2 years from now
Yep.
before you see that, into here. And so it's going to have to be transfers as well, especially for next year, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's once you break contain, like there's nothing, right?
No.
And if you're Wisconsin, it
No,
becomes
no
very.
second level. That's what I keep saying. It's the weirdest thing. There's nobody back there.
If you're playing Fresno, if you're playing Syracuse, I get it. You got to spy the quarterback, but I get it. Put all the pressure up front. If you're playing Wisconsin, you've got to know they're breaking through. I mean, like you've got to know that their horses are bigger and badder than yours. And so you've got a plan, right? And so in that way, that so far is the biggest kind of thing. And again, once they realized it, they adjusted. That shows that this isn't an idiotic staff. This is just they just didn't push the right buttons beforehand, right? They knew what to do. They just didn't know when to do it. It doesn't make sense. I don't get it. Make the whole plate out of black box. What are we doing?
Yeah,
We
what
were
are
asked
doing?
to sub in the Nebraska portion with actually two different requests. One was to discuss Minnesota's finish, which I sort of alluded to a minute ago. But there were a few points that made. I saw people on Twitter, people not just reactionary people, like people who tend to know college football, saying, "Man, like Fleck is a good and Boilermakers, you've acknowledged this. He is a good program builder. Identity
you
wise,
can't deny that.
Getting them to believe, but he is a terrible in-game coach. I've seen more than a few people point this out. Like the fact that you can't sit on a 3-touchdown lead over this Northwestern team.
But what they typically do, right? They get a lead and then they just sit on it. They just grind everything slows way down. That's their MO. That's been their MO for
21
years.
points in the fourth quarter.
Against the mighty Northwestern Wildcats.
If you ask Jeff Brom on Truth Serum what bugged him most out of his 6 years at Purdue, I guarantee it will be a losing record to PJ Fleck.
Right.
I guarantee it. He knows in his bones he's a better coach than PJ. Yeah. And for some reason, that game always got weird. And so it was that, oh, geez, I know.
And we were also asked about addressing, I don't know what needs to be said, but addressing the Colorado's ass kicking this week. But look, a couple things here. Number one,
it's a good team. Oregon's really good, and they were
a bunch of things we want to pull together, tie together a neat little bow here. Dan Lanning we mentioned him already. He's a young guy. One of the benefits of having these young, emotional guys as head coaches, you get a little bit of the swagger, and that you don't get the Saban or the Belichick style we're on to next week kind of stuff. You get a guy who's tired of listening to this crap, and he's going to get fired up about it and use it for his team and say, yes, you can have a camera in the locker room, and yes, you can broadcast it. Right. That is some swagger there. And I will also give a little shout out to Dion in his post game because he said,
that was great.
I got nothing. He congratulated the coaches. They did a great job. They were prepared. We also played poorly. I did not expect that. That's on us. He didn't say it's on the team. He said it's on us. It's on the coaches. We need to be better. That's an old-fashioned butt whipping. I mean, I give him a lot of credit for just saying, hey, we got our ass kicked and we deserved it. Now, I minus a few points just because at the end he did the Charlie Rice, Scott Frost. You better get us now.
What's the Dan Hurley? Dan Hurley did this too at UConn basketball.
But Dan Hurley backed it up. Dan Hurley won a national championship. Dion's not winning a national championship. He will be good. And I will revise I was looking again at their schedule. Colorado's going to go to a bowl this year because
seven wins.
That in and of itself is so. I think this is where a lot of the impatience is coming. That Dion is able to take that many changes and transfers to the
That's
coaching
exactly where
staff
it's coming from.
and turn what was
They were
the
a
worst
one-win
team
team.
I mean,
One win.
worst
And they
team
got 3.
Are you
in
talking about the
September.
impatience by Purdue fans coming
by
from that?
everybody.
I don't think
Everybody
so.
with
I don't think
first-year
so. I think it's
coaches.
much more. I think it all comes from this list. I think it all comes from this list because people say Tiller did it, Brom did it. I think that's it. I think that's the
Fair.
whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't think Purdue fans.
But
wanna
you don't
compare
think that the
themselves to
current
Colorado,
climate
most
is
of
that
them.
turnarounds are easy or can be done more quickly now? I think Brom.
I think most Purdue fans, though, you say,
Don't
yeah,
pay
Brom did a
attention.
great
Yeah.
job. Tiller did a great job. Those are two of the best Purdue football coaches in the last 50 years. And the other guys who didn't turn it around right away, they didn't turn it around.
Yes.
That's the hard thing, I think, for Purdue fans to get their head
point.
around, that there is another path, that you can actually have a guy get better in the second, third year. And that's what I wanted to kind of prove with Jim Young, really, more than anybody. It can be done.
Which was 40 years ago?
Yes, 1,000 years ago.
It's
Molikoff did it too. He was 3-4-2, and then okay, sorry. that's
Someone in
worse.
there.
It's
Oh, our
worse.
friend Cobra Stats was here, and we'd have to go way back,
Oh,
but he
dude.
pulled up a hilarious.
It was like in the 1800s, wasn't it?
Yes, he pulled up some 1800s coaches. Who
Younger
beat Indiana
coach.
like 60. Yeah, it was young, 20 something.
Yeah,
And
12.
but I think that might be the period where Purdue was actually literally using Boilermaker. That's how they got the name.
It is that period, and it's the period where you would it was like the Wild West who played, right? You just enroll people in class, boom, that
storming teams.
And sometimes you're playing high school teams back then.
Yeah,
that happened often. And then the next week you play Newt Rockney's team. What? Huh? What is this madness?
And
that's why people died all the time.
And then that'd be the season.
Yeah. Oh, hey, one thing going back to this Colorado thing. Here's a way that Colorado's season could absolutely fall apart. Much of their success is based on their ones, and it's about 5 or 6 guys. They lost their best player, I would argue, right?
Oh yeah.
Correct.
And their second best player is Shedeur Sanders, right? So if you lose 1 and 2, both those guys, you might start circling the drain. It could be that bad that quickly.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who their number 2 quarterback is, but it's not Sanders. Right?
What the Oregon game also showed is Oregon's strength is the trenches. And their weakness is the trenches because you're not building it up. And all of a sudden, it turns into an ass.
But I think USC is going to beat them in a different way this weekend.
Well, because Caleb, I mean, what are you going to do?
Now, it might be more fun. Might be a shootout. It's at Colorado.
I think you're going to see somebody's got a really good hard question here, guys.
Which one?
BTF USC. I don't understand what those would be, those letters. Would you rather beat Indy or Wisconsin next year? Ooh, I like that. That's hard. I like it for me.
It's not hard for me.
Losing to Wisconsin causes me no emotional anything, pain at all. I've already come to.
I just want to see the damn streak end sometime.
Yeah.
It can end the year afterwards. Give me a Notre Dame win every time.
Yeah.
And you beat Notre Dame, and it helps everything out. Helps you walk around the state of Indiana with a little hop in your step. Helps recruiting. Helps everything.
Maybe Freeman can just go. He can go be North Carolina State's head coach or something like that. Just some team that I can root for in peace. That I don't care about that much. This is what have him go coach the Bears. It's fine. I'll root for the Bears. I don't care.
You've said that before. I would not wish that on anybody. Coaching the Bears.
This is true. Maybe I was gonna say the Lions.
Marcus Freeman
the Lions
fade into Bolivian.
Lions are a better shape than the Bears are. So oof.
Yeah, Bears are in trouble. I know we got a lot of Bears fans. It's really rough right now. And I don't know what Fields is 5-22 as a starter.
Fields is done. The Bears have killed him.
He has to be done.
The Bears have killed him as a prospect.
You just saw it leave his body this week, in fact.
Yeah,
it's so bad. He was such a good prospect, and the Bears did the Bears thing against him. Oh, it's so terrible. Anyway,
by the way,
yes, Notre Dame.
Oh, speaking of NFL quarterbacks, Garoppolo's in concussion protocol.
Yeah,
so
does
warming
that
up
mean,
in the wings?
So I think AOC he's the third string before that. So you've got Hoyer is your starter. This is one of the things. What has Hoyer ever done in the NFL? Ever done? He's never come in spot duty and be like, "Wow, that guy's pretty good." I don't think anyone's ever said that. They said, "Wow, that guy's
who
serviceable?"
started the year. He wasn't the guy that started when Brady was out that year. Was it Hoyer the Destroyer or was it somebody else?
No,
Hoyer
that was
played that
Matt
year,
Castle.
but it was It was
Matt
Castle.
Castle.
Exactly.
It
And Castle had that. He was good for them.
Matt Castle won 11-5.
Yeah,
They missed the
that's
playoffs.
Yeah.
And then he got a massive deal, I think, with KC. Maybe he got a big contract with somebody after that.
I think
he never was good again.
Never did anything.
Shout out dudes. Guys named dudes.
I don't know why I remember that so well. But the great thing with Castle is he was a backup in college and a backup in the pros, and I want to say even like a backup in high school or something. It was like he was skilled and he had the tools.
He was he from Mater Dei or something like that in California? And so he was behind
they're
a
good.
line of great quarterbacks.
Where like even the backups, you're like, I'll take that guy, sure. And then he backed up. Didn't he back up Leinart at USC? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Did I do all this from memory?
Yes, you did.
What is stored up there?
Pretty good for an old guy.
But he didn't play there either.
Imagine if we could free up the space for useful things.
Things that matter.
The memory is clogged up now. You can't delete it. There was another one, which is, I think, a question specifically for me, and maybe an unexpected answer, which is a no-brainer. South Haven Boiler says, would you rather pay $1.1 million for one baller every year or buy a good O-line with that NIL money? I would die to see a good Purdue offensive line. Just 5 years, 5 years straight of good Purdue offensive lines in this era. That's it. That's all I want.
Painter, I mean, Purdue hasn't had 5 good years of offensive line since Tiller was here.
Painter can take your 3s and 4 stars and insert joke here to and finish top 3 in the Big Ten.
Take them all the way to the tournament.
Exactly.
Can't make my Sweet 16 champion joke anymore.
I know. I'll take the Sweet 16s now.
Exactly. That's been taken from us. The joy of the Sweet 16 champs joke.
Offensive line. Buy me an offensive line, please. Some big Purdue benefactor just start the NIL collective just for the offensive linemen. Yeah. Just big corn-fed dudes.
Yeah. Hey guys, I don't know if you saw this a minute ago. Someone just asked the question: is the BS store the insulated mugs, insulated can? They're gone. They're gone. They're gone. But you know what's not gone, guys? You know what's not gone? If you go to Home Field Apparel, they have plenty of gear. T-shirts, sweatshirts. Mine says Home Field. Yours says Purdue. How about that? You can get a lot of cool gear and enter Boiled 23 at checkout and get 15% off. You know who else is always full of stuff?
You.
I am.
After AJ's.
Yeah, after AJ's. Yes, I am. And AJ's they'll have everything you want there. They'll have beers on draft.
I went in there Thursday night.
Yeah. How was it, Jay? What did you think?
It was, as always, it was wonderful. And none of you were there to greet me. Not you guys. You guys are always willing to greet me. But I expected more. I expected more out of you all. But you need to go to AJ's. If you don't, he says that people come in and mention us. So if you go, you need to mention us. Our sticker is on the host lectern
thing,
whatever. Podium
lectern.
They're giving.
It's collegiate. Sorry. I'm being all like formal.
The podium, yes.
Gather around. I'm about to tell you the goodness of the mac and cheese bites. Get your notebooks.
That'd be a great class. AJ is 101.
I love that class. Yeah.
Oh man,
Adam or Jake could teach.
Get yourself to AJ's. It is a perfect place to go for.
I had a gyro last time, by the way, guys.
What's that?
You getting healthy?
It's delicious.
Did you call it a gyro?
Gyro. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
It's a
gyro. You say gyro.
It's not. In New York, they pronounce it gyro. It's incorrect. It's gyro.
Completely wrong.
I think Philly, they do gyro, actually.
Yeah, Philly, maybe. Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. My
called a hero here, actually.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Well, that's weird.
You never heard of a? Well, have you ever heard of a sub?
Hero's a sandwich. Yeah.
Yes. Where do you think the term comes from? You think they called it a hero because it was it's a hero?
I don't know.
It came from the word gyro.
That doesn't make any sense.
Yes, it makes perfect sense.
I mean, no, it doesn't. I mean, I follow what you're saying. It makes
Jay Money and all of his random knowledge couldn't remember the word podium.
Lectern is the same thing.
But lectern makes it sound like you're about to. Podium is like you're just standing there. Lectern is you're about to deliver a message. Yeah, something big is coming.
Rally the troops.
Oh, and the thing that's coming next, Jay, is Jay Money, table of 2. Yes. That was an important message.
Well,
somebody said in the comments that I like AJ's too much. If that's loving AJ's
If
is
that's
wrong.
the worst thing you
Right.
could say, right? That's fine.
Put that on my tombstone.
A podium.
Right.
Noodle says a podium is what you stand on. That is well said. That is true. So in your faces, you two idiots making fun of me.
Lectern.
Lectern, I love it. It's closer to a lectern than a podium. I think though, podium is the same.
This is my
thing. I
favorite.
wouldn't say
Podium's
you don't
the
stand on.
Anish
a
will
podium.
never give me
Podium's
credit for anything. That's the
You
most
don't
I'll get is, I suppose it's closer than, no, it's accurate.
No, but
It's
you don't
actually
stand
what
on
it
a
is.
podium. I disagree with Noodle here. You don't stand. You stand behind a podium.
You'd stand behind a
No,
podium.
no. What do the
Yes.
medalists stand on? The podium. What are the guys with the spraying the champagne and the
Well,
race
what did
car
you
driving?
just say?
like?
Interesting
What was-
counterpoint. Interesting counterpoint. Yes, because I didn't even think about
The
that.
metal
They do that.
podium. What did you think I was talking about?
Just lectern.
Well,
Get
no,
out of
so
here,
it's
Greg.
like you're
out,
standing
man.
behind the podium. You're talking like from
Yes.
it. People use it as lectern, but your
No.
Olympic, but your Olympic.
We
This
use
is the
it
first good
incorrectly.
point you've ever
Noodle is
made.
correct.
It's the
Todd,
first-
Todd is 16. Hostess
Todd's
station is the correct
hostess
station.
hostess station.
Well, what if it's a male Todd? You can't call
Well,
it a
it's a
hostess
male
station.
hostess then.
It is. It is.
In your face.
Ah, Twinkies.
Yes.
Uh,
The
we-
dais is
so,
a table.
so
right?
it's a must. So it's a must win against Illinois, and if we don't, we
Just cancel
fire
the
him.
season.
That's
Yeah,
it.
exactly. Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Right?
Start the
Okay,
collection.
Great. That was the lesson from all of the actual research that we did.
We'll have people starting the website. Fire Ryan Walters.
Still
Excellent.
Dickwagon asks about the Illinois game predictions.
Oof.
So it's a
Oof.
must
I
win
wanna
from both
win.
you guys. I don't like the term must win ever.
No,
No,
I agree.
it's-
I don't like it either.
Yeah, it's
but
not a must win.
but you kind
Tournament
would
games
like
are
to.
must wins, right? Because then you're done. So Purdue does great in those.
I don't know, man. The whole team was there celebrating, flashing rings and stuff. It seemed like
That's
the
why
season
I
ended great
only
from what I saw.
somehow I put it up from my memory
We
that
still
they
online?
they literally won at the basketball team everything you could win until the tournament. They won everything. They
Right.
won everything. They had
Right.
2 rings.
Well, they
They were
should have had
showing
another ring from being November champs.
Right. Where's your when they
won
mow down
literally
everybody in
everything.
Maui? Oh man, you're gonna be or Honolulu, wherever they're gonna be now.
I saw Zach, and it's
I
like,
think they're
yeah,
going to
I'm in.
lose the first game in Maui just to change things up, and then they're going to win the national championship. Jay.
Well, we've had this
That's all-
conversation.
That's what's going to happen.
Every
Turn it
team
all on
that's
its
ever
own.
lost to a 16 has won the national championship the next.
That's right. That's
So
right.
I don't
It's
expect
enough.
that to change.
No.
And by the way, do they really need 2 rings? Wouldn't it make more sense to have 1 ring that had both accomplishments on it?
No, they
But
need
you've got a
2
lot of
rings.
Big Ten money you
Shut
need
up.
to spend to stay
Exactly.
a nonprofit.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly. You can't pay them. That's ridiculous.
You can't save money. What they
But it
could
would
have
be the-
done is had 1 ring with really big diamonds on it, and so the ring would have been like as big as my entire.
Oh,
knuckle.
you could do a full knuckle
Oh
ring.
yes,
ball
so they
ring.
could punch
Oh.
someone in the face with it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Not
Oh, like brass knuckles?
18
Brass knuckles.
karat knuckles.
Someone's gonna do that. Like if Dion won a national title, that's what it would look like. It would be a
Could-
full
By the way, did you guys
When Dion
fans
wins
out
a
there,
national title at Texas A&M.
At A&M,
is
yeah,
what you mean.
right.
Did you
Did
guys
what?
see the throne being removed from the field
such a great
at
video.
Oregon as the band is playing? That is one of the best videos ever. Because if you don't know it, there's a throne on the sidelines of Colorado. Is it the defensive turnover throne? I really
I
don't know
think
what
so.
they. And so that throne getting removed by 2 student trainers
After losing
is
42 to
hilarious
6.
video. So
Yeah.
it's good stuff. Yeah, I don't
Well-
like. I've never liked any of this stuff. The defensive chains.
I hate
the
all this.
turnover-
Did you see
No.
Akron had a tire?
I saw that. It was
I
we
don't
and
understand.
it had no
It
tread
was-
on it. It was a
It was
ball
Looked
just
like a
tire.
ball
straight
tire.
up tire. They
Just a tire.
found it on the side of the road in
They
Akron.
were like, you know what, this will do. This is
And
good
they
enough.
almost
We're
beat
Akron,
Indiana with
rubber.
it.
the rubber
I wonder,
capital
was it
of the
even
world.
Goodyear? That's a question. That's a fair question. Is that because I think Goodyear
Better
wouldn't
be.
want to associate themselves with a bald tire off my '82 Skylark when I was driving in high school. That happened. Oh, that's true. My dad bought me used tires. That's a whole nother thing. There's a lot of pain in there.
Used tires?
Used tires. 38th Street in Indianapolis. You can buy used tires, my friend. It's real.
What could go wrong?
Nothing. Nothing. As long as your son is ready to change tires in the middle of the night when he's out too late, because I did.
It's fine. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
I think we've droned on enough here.
It's been a good show, guys. Appreciate your time. Appreciate our sponsors, AJ's and Home Field Apparel. Tune in to the Boilermakers kicking off at 3:30, a must win, according to many around these parts,
Watched by
versus
dozens.
Illinois
on
and
Peacock.
Bert's Snack a lot. Yes. Yeah.
Snack
Love
a
you
lot
guys.
ass.
Yeah.
Like
Snack a lot of ass.
Snugglepuffs?
Yeah. Love you guys. Good night.